Hello, everyone, and this is the second episode of BillyBoy Looks Back. Hopefully, we're getting in the swing of things here. I'm still getting used to the idea of recording audio rather than typing. I can do today a cross promotion of my existing reviews, which is my WordPress account. That would be http://realreviewschicago.wordpress.com. That's still in use. It just hasn't been updated in like 2 months, but I still love doing actual written commentary rather than speaking. So definitely check it out. I'm way behind on that. My belated review on that will be the look back at 2018, where I cover like films of each decade. During the month of December, I look back at like a film from 1998, a film from 2008, a film from 1978, all the way going back to 1928. So definitely check out my written blog. But in the meantime, let's get rolling with our voiceover audio reviews. Today, continuing what we were reviewing with yesterday, we're doing Razzie nominees, the worst films of 2018. I'm looking at each film. I'm actually screening these films, and we'll be voting on the Razzies this year. If you listen to my last broadcast, you'd know that. And today we're looking at Winchester. Winchester, woo, scary. It's a horror film, supposedly. So we looked into that. I did screen the movie like 2 days ago, so it's pretty fresh in my mind, unlike the first one I did, which I had actually watched about a month ago. So let's get in Winchester. I'll give my thoughts on it. First, going into it, if you're not familiar with Winchester, what it's basically about, based on a true story, it's really a very famous story that happened in American history. It's part of our national culture, our fabric of our history. And I've always wanted to see the Winchester Mansion because, of course, like I said, it's based on a true story about the incident where Mrs. Winchester basically thought that she was being haunted by the spirit of all the deceased people that had been killed by her husband's rifles. He developed the Winchester firearm, the gun that won the West, and she inherited millions of dollars. Mr. Winchester, died, but she figured that after inheriting all this money, she felt all this guilt about all the people that were murdered by Winchester guns, and was convinced that like they were haunting her. There's some dispute about how accurate this really happened, but whatever it was, she was convinced to build this house in California, which is one of the most amazing architectural feats in American history. It's just got a insane labyrinth of rooms. It doesn't make any sense. There's staircases that lead to nowhere. There's doors that open in empty space. There's places where you have to go down to get up, and so on. And a lot of it has like really weird design, where there's like 13 stairs, there's 13 repeating hallways, and all sort of thing. 13 bathrooms, 13 bedrooms. She repeated the number 13 a lot, which becomes a plot element in the movie, I think, in a way that was corrupted, that wasn't accurate to what really happened. But anyway, the real story, I'd love to see a documentary on this, because I think that is more interesting than what we got here, which is like a fictitious retelling of that. And it sort of bills itself as like an accurate, based on true story, but it starts off with inspired by real events, which tells you right there that they basically took a one-line premise about what really happened and kind of went into fictional territory here with a way to do, let's turn it into a modern horror movie. And really, the Winchester story, in my opinion, would work best as a psychological thriller. And I love there's a supernatural element about that. It depends on you as a viewer whether you believe in the existence of afterlife and spirits and ghosts, and I do. But I don't like what they did here, which is turn it into a conventional like haunted house story, which it was not. There was no poltergeist and rattling chains and supernatural apparitions. That didn't happen. She had a seance room where she tried to contact spirits, and even Harry Houdini, who spent his entire life trying to debunk the whole idea of fake mediums, he toured the Winchester house. He could not solve the mystery of his house. He came away like one of the few things that stumped Harry Houdini, greatest musician of all time, that, like I said, made a career out of debunking fraud. So it wasn't that this was any type of real supernatural haunting. It was the house was so mysterious that nobody could solve what Mrs. Winchester had actually done, and the house was continually built for her entire life. It basically only they ceased building upon her death. The one element they did do in the movie, which I think is probably a definitive point, was the famous 1906 San Francisco earthquake. Was so devastating it like knocked down 2 stories in the house, and of course this occurs in the movie, becomes like a pivotal climactic part of the movie, and they kind of like attribute it to supernatural elements, like the spirits are causing the earthquake or something like that. It's basically their tone they're going for. Now, this film, does it deserve Razzie nominations? A horrible, horrible movie. Some of the views are really, really harsh. Now, I actually thought the first 2/3 of this film was decent. I wasn't like thinking it's a great movie, but considering I've been waiting for years for them to make a movie of the Winchester story, It starts off pretty good, and the premise is probably fictional as well. But I mean, it works because it's like the Winchester Company is like, well, Mrs. Winchester's off her rocker, so they're going to send a guy out there who's going to psychologically profile her. Is she fit to continue on the board of directors, or should we like take away the company from her? Because she does all this crazy stuff behind the scenes. And he's like, oh no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to like actually have to spend a month in this house with this woman. And they're like, basically they make it like an offer he can't refuse that he's going to go do this. And some of the nominations here we got, for worst actor and worst actress, Helen Mirren as Mrs. Winchester, and her performance is really good. She doesn't give the material she's given to work with is not that much, so she does what she can. I think she did a great job portraying Mrs. Winchester, especially because, like I said, it's such an American story. She's an English actress, and she said herself in the interviews that she had not familiar with the Winchester story before she was cast in this movie, and that she really got a sense of what Mrs. Winchester was like. She said her spirit is definitely a part of this house in terms of the way she lived. That they toured the real life Winchester mansion. Jason Clarke plays a psychologist that has to profile her. I've seen it in a lot of movies, like he was in the second Planet of the Apes reboot, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He recently played Ted Kennedy. I thought he was good too. A lot of it is really boring, and again, it's not the actor's fault. They worked with what they had, so I don't blame them at all, and I don't think those nominations for worst actress are deserved at all. Because, like I said, her performance is going to be different if like she had no clue what she's doing, and Mrs. Winchester, the way she portrayed her, was not in any way faithful to the personification or the way the script intended. And I'd go, oh yeah, she deserves worst actress. But I felt it was a big letdown. I wish they would have actually done, like I said, a psychological thriller instead of trying to just do a things to go bump in the night movie. I saw a movie a couple years ago that I felt the same way, where I'm like, this movie's really building to something cool, and it just gives you this like conventional horror twist, and I'm like, okay, they've ruined it for me. That was something, The Wellness. I can't remember the name of it now. It wasn't The Road to Wellness, something similar, but it was a psychological thriller that de-evolved into a basic monster movie. It really ruined it for me. This wasn't quite on that level, but just the third act of the movie was really disappointing, and I didn't like it. And I have to give it overall a failing grade. So I would definitely say it deserves to be nominated as a bad movie. And I feel unfortunate for even that, because I wish it was good. It's one of the movies where I'm disappointed, and it doesn't deserve the hate it gets, but it could have been done a lot better. It's funny because I watched some of the behind the scenes stuff about the making of this movie. It's made by a couple of Australian brothers. They recently did a movie which I watched, Predestination. I told everybody, you got to see this movie. This movie's messed up. It's a really bizarre science fiction movie. It's got some kind of transgender plot that really goes off the rails. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but that was a really cool movie. It's based on a short story, but they really fleshed it out. It had some bizarre stuff. You can tell they fleshed out a little bit too much with this mad bomber that wasn't part of the original short story. But it's a cool concept. They're definitely talented directors, and it's funny because they said they recreated the whole Winchester mansion in Melbourne, Australia. So these guys must have went out to California and like took pictures and measured everything. And I kind of wish they had done more with that, because they did such a great job with the set design that this, in my opinion, it actually should give them kind of an Oscar nomination for art direction and set design, but definitely not for like cinematography or for the script, because they really squander it, And I'm like, okay, well, in my opinion, if you're making a movie about Winchester, the house should be like the main character. The whole movie should be like, the house reveals Mrs. Winchester's state of mind, and there was a little bit of that, like certain scenes that kind of recreate certain iconic rooms in the Winchester mansion, which you can go to the website and see the whole tour thing by flashlight. But you really don't get a whole sense of scale, and there's certain like shots of the movie where they give like a whole overview of the mansion. If you look at the Winchester mansion on the internet, you Google it. It is a really cool, just vast labyrinth of rooms, and you can only get like a glimpse of it. I think they're just scratching the surface here. So I thought the movie had some redeeming qualities. It wasn't horrible, but it was overall a big disappointment. I don't think I'll give it any votes for worst picture. I think there's probably much worse movies out there, but I think the Winchester story deserved better than this. So that's my look at Winchester. Ooh, with Helen Mirren as Sarah Winchester. It's funny because I'd actually recommend checking it out, just because if you've never heard of the Winchester story, you should see this movie. This is your introduction to it. But there's so much more than this movie. So it really is a pale imitation of what could have been. So I think that's it. I think we're going to sign off here. We'll definitely be looking all the other Razzie nominees. I originally said we're going to go like 5 minutes on these. We're going to go 10 minutes with these. There's quite a lot of in-depth discussion on all these movies, but I hope at least when we get rolling now, you get a sense of what I want to be doing with these vlogging, my video blogs, and I'm looking for you guys' input. I hope it gets some audience here. So this is BillyBoy signing off, and I will see you next week. We're going to kind of skip ahead past the Super Bowl. I figure nobody will be listening on Sunday, but I definitely want to be rolling right into this with our next one, which will be the Happy Time Murders, a basic mockery of the whole Muppets. So definitely tune in for that, and you guys take care. BillyBoy signing out.